Someone in the comments pointed out that 2003 was the only year from the early 2000s that I was missing in this weird NASCAR rumors series, so today we're fixing that. 2003 was a year where eras came to an end. The end of the full season points format, the end of Winston's sponsorship of the Cup Series, which we'll get into later in this video, but I want to start with the end of a different era, the end of Bill Elliott's full-time career, and Evernham's search to find a replacement. Talk started floating around the garage area in August that Awesome Bill may be stepping back from racing full-time, but there was a big question mark about whether or not it was actually true, and Elliott wasn't really letting anyone know for sure. Ray Evernham, for his part, said he had no intention of making any changes to his driver lineup, but those question marks didn't stop names from immediately being thrown around as potential replacements. One of the first names mentioned was Greg Biffle, who was a rookie for Roush at the time. Biffle was having a rookie season of highs and lows, which featured a failure to qualify for the race at Las Vegas, a win at Daytona in July, and ultimately a 20th place finish in points. Still, Biffle's plans for 2004 were not yet set in stone, and Evernham wasn't the only team that he was connected to. Brendan Gaughan, who was in the middle of a breakout season in the Truck Series, was another name that got thrown around as well. There was also Ward Burton, who was actually one of the hottest names on the silly season market in 2003. He appeared to be on his way out at Bill Davis Racing, but Dodge was said to want to keep him in their camp, but that appears to have only been a very brief rumor. It was in September that Kasey Kahne's name was mentioned for the first time, and as we all know, he would ultimately get the seat, but not without things getting pretty complicated first. Kahne had a contract as a Ford development driver, and there were some big question marks about whether or not he would be able to get out of that contract. In fact, it was reported that Kahne's contract would eventually have him driving for Robert Yates, and he was simply on loan to Aiken Motorsports in the Busch Series. But Ray Evernham was no stranger to getting young prospects out of contracts with other teams. Go watch Weird NASCAR Rumors 2000 for more on that. It looked like there would be a buyout of Kahne's contract, but Ford seriously wanted to hang on to him. They supposedly offered him a Cup seat with Travis Carter's two-car team, but Kahne claimed that Ford needed to make him an offer in equal equipment to what Dodge was offering, and that just wasn't a match for Evernham Motorsports. And this led to some talk that he could end up going to the Cup Series with Yates as soon as 2004. But the problem was that Yates already had Dale Jarrett and Elliott Sadler in the Cup Series, and as we talked about in the first episode of this series, Yates was pretty committed to remaining a two-car team throughout the years. But the talk here was that Yates would give Kahne a part-time ride in 2004 and then run him full-time in 2005. Whether that would mean the departure of Jarrett or Sadler, or if Yates would finally start the third team that people at Ford seemed to want him to, isn't clear. This saga dragged on for a few months, and in the end, the plans for Elliott and Kahne wouldn't be officially announced until the first week of December. Elliott would run part-time in the 91 car, and Kahne would pilot the 9, and also remain at Aiken Motorsports in the Busch Series, as Aiken would switch from Ford to Dodge and get their engines from Evernham instead of Yates. The biggest era that came to an end in 2003 was the era of R.J. Reynolds' sponsorship of the NASCAR Winston Cup Series, and major companies were lining up at the door to become the title sponsor of NASCAR's premier series. R.J. Reynolds had been a mainstay in NASCAR for decades, but in February of 2003, with lawsuits abound in the tobacco industry, it seemed to be becoming clear that it would be best for both sides if a new title sponsor was found. ESPN reported that one unnamed source who was high up in the industry stated that R.J. Reynolds still had 5 years left on its contract with NASCAR, but would step aside if a suitable replacement was found. Immediately, companies like UPS, McDonald's, Budweiser, Home Depot, FedEx, and Coca-Cola all surfaced as possible replacements as a title sponsor. All of these companies made sense, of course, giant companies with a lot of money to bring to the table, and they were all already involved in NASCAR with the exception of FedEx at the time. About a week after these rumors started, it was confirmed that NASCAR was looking for a new sponsor. According to Bill France, NASCAR wasn't just being abandoned or having its contract broken with them. Rather, they were simply being given permission to look. About a month later, there was actually a pretty cool rumor reported in the Charlotte Observer that in an effort to prevent a revolving door of frequent sponsor and name changes for the Cup Series, NASCAR might just name its top-tier series after an all-time great driver like Richard Petty or Dale Earnhardt, and put "presented by insert company here" under the logo. I don't think this was ever really anything more than some speculation by some, but it would have been pretty neat to see the Dale Earnhardt Cup Series. As the spring went on, more names were added to the discussion, including Visa, Gillette, Microsoft, and AT&T. But in June, NASCAR signed with Nextel, and the Nextel signing really messed up plans for two teams in particular, Roush and Dale Earnhardt Incorporated. You see, Nextel didn't want their competitors sponsoring cars, and while Singular and Alltel's sponsorships of Robbie Gordon and Ryan Newman were safe, AT&T was an associate sponsor at Roush and wanted to become a primary sponsor. Jack Roush was set to lose Citgo as the primary sponsor for Jeff Burton's number 99 car, and DEI was losing Pennzoil as the sponsor of the 1 car, and both were actively courting AT&T as a sponsor. When Nextel signed with NASCAR, they put those talks to an end. Roush was unable to find a replacement for Citgo, leading them to piece together sponsorship for Burton whenever they could in 2004, until Burton eventually departed for RCR mid-season and Carl Edwards took the seat. And DEI was unable to replace Pennzoil, leading them to cut back to 2 full-time cars in 2004 and only run the 1 car in 9 races. Okay, so I usually do 3 major rumors and then some rapid fire in each of these videos, and honestly, it was really hard to decide what the 3rd rumor should be for this video because there were a lot of really interesting ones. Ward Burton's free agency, DEI's struggle to save the 1 car, RCR's search for a new driver for the 30 car, Jack Roush's desperate search for a sponsor for the 99 car, all had a lot of really interesting details. But I've decided to go with a rather strange rumor about Dale Jarrett possibly leaving Yates Racing. In mid-July, a strange rumor started floating around that Dale Jarrett would be headed to DEI to drive the 1 car. Things were not going well for Jarrett at the time, or for Yates more broadly. Despite winning the 2nd race of the year at Rockingham, by mid-July, Jarrett only had 3 top 10s and was sitting 29th in points. A sharp drop-off from his performance in 2002, which saw him finish 9th in the final standings. It could be said that DEI's president Ty Norris stirred the pot a bit when he said if Dale Jarrett was on the market and if DEI were looking for a driver, there's no more experienced guy with a ton of class who sponsors love and who has tremendous ability. Now, he did go on to say that they were still looking for a sponsor, and that if you were to rate the rumor hot, medium, or cold, it would be cold. And of course, it is difficult to really interpret someone's tone through text, so maybe he genuinely meant nothing of it. But if I were going to stir the pot, I might say something like that. The Jarrett to DEI rumors didn't last very long, but that wasn't the end of the Dale Jarrett rumors. Jarrett was going to get roped into another silly season story. You see, once again, in the summer of 2003, Chip Ganassi was making another run at signing Tony Stewart. This was basically an annual occurrence at this point, and I've discussed these rumors at some length in Weird NASCAR Rumors 2001, 2002 Part 1, and the Ricky Rudd Sweepstakes. You can check out those videos for more on Ganassi's hunt to sign Stewart. And I won't dive too deep into it in this video other than to say this time, the rumor was that Stewart could sign with Ganassi and go race an IndyCar for him for 1 year before returning to NASCAR in 2005 after his contract with Gibbs had expired. Anyway, the talk was that if Stewart left, Dale Jarrett might be headed back to Joe Gibbs Racing to take his place in the 20 car. If Jarrett saw Yates as a sinking ship and wanted to get off, a move to Gibbs made a lot of sense. He raced there for 3 years from 1992 to 94 and picked up JGR's first ever win in the 1993 Daytona 500. So this would have been a bit of a homecoming for him, albeit in the 20 car instead of the 18. This wasn't the only rumor going around about the future of Jarrett and Yates. There was also talk floating around in the garage area that Robert Yates was growing tired of team ownership and was looking to merge with another team, possibly either Ganassi or Gibbs. Yates initially laughed it off and joked that he might be interested if Bill Gates wanted to invest in his team, but he wasn't looking to merge with or sell out to another team. Gibbs Racing's general manager, Jimmy Makar, who also happened to be Dale Jarrett's brother-in-law, said that he didn't know anything about the rumors either. But the rumors were loud enough that Robert Yates actually had to address his team to deny them. Also, the rumors of a Yates merger with Dale Earnhardt Incorporated would come up just a couple of years later, so check out my video on Weird NASCAR Rumors from 2007 for more on that. Jarrett's sponsor, UPS, was not happy about these rumors. They were reportedly paying $16 million annually to sponsor Jarrett, so it's understandable that they didn't take these rumors lightly, and there began to be talk that if Jarrett went somewhere else, then UPS would go with him. Jarrett would make a statement a couple of days later to put the rumors to bed and make it known that he had no intention of leaving Yates. He would remain there for another 3 years and bounce back for a decent 2004 season with 14 top 10s, and pick up one last win in 2005, but he never finished any higher than 15th in the points again. I respect Jarrett for his loyalty, and a move to Gibbs seems like it was never really that realistic, but it would have been neat to see him end his career at Gibbs, and I think he would have fared better there than with a declining Yates Racing or a newly full-time Michael Waltrip Racing. Okay, let's close out with rapid fire. Scott Riggs seemed destined for DEI's number 1 car if they were able to find sponsorship, but in the end, sponsorship just couldn't be found. Also, speaking of DEI, Teresa Earnhardt was trying to convince Mike Helton to leave NASCAR and come run DEI, but that obviously didn't work out. Richard Childress Racing had a long, drawn-out saga to find a driver for the number 30 car, which saw names like both of the Burton brothers, Jeremy Mayfield, JJ Yaley, Todd Bodine, and more, but the most interesting name was Scott Dixon. Yes, that Scott Dixon, who was on his way to his first of 6 IndyCar championships in 2003. Also, NASCAR apparently reached out to Nissan, who had recently announced that they would be producing full-size trucks, and asked if they would be interested in joining Toyota in the Craftsman Truck Series. Nissan apparently wanted to keep an open dialogue, but obviously nothing ever happened. Anyway, that's what I've got for today. The truth is I probably had enough material to make a part 2 for this video, so let me know if you want me to expand on any of the rapid fire rumors, or if there is something that I didn't mention that you want me to talk about. Please like the video and share it with a friend. Until next time, thanks for watching and have a great day.